empowHER has been doing some great work with water, sanitation, and hygiene programs. They're also called WASH programs. Can you tell us more about how your team is working with rural women in offering sanitation security?
Yeah, sure. So, just to give you a quick overview, so empowHER is, looks at all social issues with a gender lens, right? So, similarly, we do that for sanitation as well, which is a very important vertical for us. I mean, just in 2020, we're still talking about something as basic as sanitation, which is, quite shocking. But this is reality, and people on a daily basis are stripped of their dignity in that sense. So it's a very, very important area, space to to be working in. So just to come back to your question about how we work with the women. So typically we enter a village, we do a survey of the village, we identify beneficiaries that don't have toilets. So mainly we speak to the women of the households. We try and understand what their problems are, their household income, and so on. And then we do one round of advocacy with them, why it is important to have a toilet, what are the health implications, and so on. We then sort of finalize the number of beneficiaries that we work with in any given village. We have a local contractor that works with us, and then sort of we build the, the toilet blocks for these women.
Mm-hmm.
And and even after the sanitation blocks are built, we go back in periodically to monitor whether the what we've built, the beneficiaries are actually using the toilets, and also in terms of advising them on how to keep it clean, how to maintain their toilets. So these are the post construction advocacy that happens with these women.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So when you go to these villages, and you kind of take a survey of how many women are there, how many toilets are there, what are their views towards open defecation versus having a toilet, do you see any kind of knowledge barriers when it comes to the benefits of having a toilet versus not? Because I feel like there's like a preconceived notion, especially in villages, that open defecation is somehow healthier or cleaner than using a toilet. So, what kind of knowledge barriers do you see happening?
So increasingly, I feel the knowledge of not defecating openly has increased. So, but they only know that you're not supposed to do it. They don't know the reasons behind why that's the thing, right? Because now you have the government advertising that it's bad, you should not be doing it, and so on. So even when we go and we are sort of asking them, because we want to build a toilet for them, they know all the right answers. If we say toilet hai, they'll say no, we don't have a toilet. So I said, then you go out in the fields or khet mein jate ho karne, when you have to use the loo. They say nahi, we don't go, because then that's not a politically correct answer. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they're very aware of what is the right thing to say.
Yeah.
But to your point, that really understanding the reasons behind why this is important, that's kind of lost on them right now. And we need to do a better job at sort of pushing that.
Yeah. I think one of the things I heard was that uh, a lot of people believe that they kind of attribute the health problems that they get from open defecation to either hard labor or poor nutrition. But I don't think they make the connection that so many diseases, um, diarrhea, cholera, so many diseases come just from open defecation. So
Yeah, I mean, there was this study which was there, and that the study said that loses 73 million work days on an annual basis because of water related um, diseases. And water related diseases are completely related to the fact that uh, people defecate openly, right? So whatever the urine or the feces, they percolate into the ground, they contaminate the groundwater, and most of rural India is drinking water from bore wells. So it's sucked out of the earth, and then they are drinking the contaminated water. So child mortality is very, very high because of dysentery and diarrhea in India. And of course, there are tons of other diseases. But like you said, they don't make that connection, necessarily make that connection. So it's very important to actually talk about how these two are connected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
And
yeah.
do you
So
help with that? You mentioned you do that even after the toilet is built. You kind of go in and
correct.
help with that kind of.
Correct. So even before, so sort of to just build that base and foundation of knowledge. So we do that when we meet them for the first time, and then, like I said, subsequent visits after we constructed, we're sort of trying to monitor and ensuring that at least the ones that we have constructed, the beneficiaries are using those toilets.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you found
Yeah.
that do you go back after they're built, like a few months after, to see if they're still being used, or if they're locked up, if
Yeah.
they're.
Yeah. For a good, I would say 6 to 8 months after we build the toilets, we go back into the villages to ensure that the toilets being used. We've also done some studies and gone back 2 years later. Obviously, we've not gone back to all the toilets that we've constructed, but we've taken a handful and gone back and tried to see that how many are actually using them. So it was an encouraging number. There were over like 80-85% individuals using the toilet, so that was good. Yeah.
Okay, good, because I've also read that it kind of ends up being used as a storage unit, or the maintenance.
That certainly happens. We find hay, we find other household materials. We found not cattle, but like goats and stuff as well in these.
In the
Yeah, so you never know what you'll find in in the toilet, but largely it is used for the purpose that it's built. But yeah, this is certainly true.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And besides the basic knowledge of why toilets are essential, and why they need to be used for hygiene and safety, there's also um, uh, perceptions on a deeper level of um, caste, gender, and kind
Yeah.
those kind of things that play a role in this as well, right? So what have you noticed in that?
So honestly, I can't speak so much about caste.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that the in the communities that we have worked, Adivasi communities seem to the uptake is much slower than your normal typical village. That's probably because they are far more economically backward, and even in terms of the awareness, it comes to them much later, right? So they're sort of set in their ways. So that is a difference that I mean I can speak about, but I can certainly talk from a gender perspective, right? So I think one of the key things that I have noticed, I've spoken to multiple women, and of course, there are studies out there that will sort of corroborate this. That the real issue, I mean, we live in a man's world, right? So we will, even and especially in rural India, you have to adapt to what your male population is doing. To give you an example, what I mean with respect to sort of sanitation, women, they wake up before it's dawn. Okay, and they go to the fields to defecate or urinate, or your to relieve themselves, and then they hold it until it's dark again in the evening to go back, because they want to avoid prying eyes, eve teasing, and just the basic dignity of relieving yourself in privacy, right? It's not there. So this is what they have to do, and this is a common experience of millions and millions of women and young girls on a daily basis. So this is, to your question, this is the gendered experience that I'm talking about, and with this comes horrible incidences like sexual assaults, right? And just the health implications of this, of holding for so many hours, is just staggering. So these are some very real issues that women face on a daily basis due to lack of access to sanitation.
Yeah.
They certainly have it harder than men.
Yeah, definitely. I think I read on your platform, in fact, that was it 23% of girls have to drop out of school because of
That's another consequence
mental.
of yeah, because even when they hit puberty, they start menstruating. No access to toilets has a very bad impact on their education as well.
Yeah. Government support is very necessary in large scale endeavors such as yours. How has the government been or not been instrumental in this cause?
So the like different sanitation schemes, right? They have been taken up by mostly all governments. Like for example, Nirmal Bharat was the predecessor to Swachh Bharat.
Ah.
But the difference is that this government took up sanitation as a national agenda, and they put a target to it, right? So the PR and the publicity and the campaign and the resources that were put into this had far-reaching effects when you compare, in contrast to the earlier sort of schemes.
I mean,
So
they got a lot of celebrities involved in everything, so that I think that.
So celebrities is one thing, which plays a huge role with the PR and the campaign, but just on ground, putting in the resources, the manpower, the money to make it happen. I think this government has really taken it up very seriously as a core sort of objective and a goal to meet. So in that sense, I feel that yes, the government has been instrumental in making every last Indian become aware of the importance of sanitation. So that was certainly a success story, I would say. But I also on the flip side feel that the approach was very target oriented. So, and to meeting numbers and targets. So the softer aspects of a campaign, which sometimes have a far greater and a long-term impact and a sustainable impact, which is more to do with changing people's minds, investing in behavioral change campaigns. Those are things which were, in my opinion, lacking. So the if you even look at the budget, the distribution of funds with respect to infrastructure and what is sort of allocated for behavioral change activities and campaigns, that will tell you the whole story.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think when you brought up the fact that they had a lot of targets to meet, I think one of the stories was that in Madhya Pradesh, 2 boys were murdered for openly defecating, and that happened because the government put such stringent targets and
Yeah.
things on other states
Yeah.
where you have to be an open defecation free zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
that
because of that, right, and also because of that, when it's so focused on targets and not, you lose sight of the that these are actually people we are talking about. So there are a lot of, there are many gaps that are formed. People do it because they have to report it to their seniors, but the real work is not actually happening on the ground. It's a fear based sort of system,
yeah.
which will always have issues.
Right. Yeah. I don't think that any meaningful social change can come about from like fear-based campaigns, or
Correct. Yeah.
if it's just about meeting the numbers, then I don't think that any true social.
And this was, in my opinion, this is certainly a criticism I would have of Swachh Bharat. But on the positive, I feel there hasn't been any other government that has really taken up the agenda. I mean, of sanitation in the manner that they have, and literally, they, if nothing else, all Indians know that defecating openly is bad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's
sense.
absolutely true. 5 years ago, 5 years ago, India was the number one nation that had the most people openly.
It was more than 700 million.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
that's right.
And
Yeah,
that number has decreased about 40 or 50%. So that kind of speaks for itself.
yeah. But
But
there's one more thing I want to, a point that I want to make here, Aashna, which is important, which is that that access doesn't mean usage.
Mhm.
Those are two very different things,
Yeah.
right? So you can construct a toilet and give it to them, but
Mhm.
if they are not convinced that, this is something that is going to benefit me, they're not. And you'll find a lot of, there are examples across India, you'll find many toilets absolutely rotting,
Yeah.
right? Which have been sort of constructed during the Swachh Bharat drive, but those are just completely dysfunctional. It's because we're not investing in behavioral change, which is the key here.
Yeah, that is absolutely the key. And like you mentioned, access is different from usage. Limited access of water is one of the things that kind of seems
Mm-hmm.
to be a problem with most wash facilities. How is
Mm-hmm.
how are your sanitation facilities combating that problem?
So the access to water is definitely a problem, but not necessarily everywhere. For example, we've constructed multiple toilets in Panvel, in rural Panvel, not in the urban city. But there, there is a lot of access to water. So outside every toilet, you'll find a big drum filled with water. Whereas in a place like Karjat, half of Karjat has, there is scarcity of water there. So, and we have people complaining, "Ke aap toilet to bana rahe ho, you're constructing a toilet, but how am I going to clean it, and how am I going to, maintain it?" So these are valid points that they have, but there are ways of going around it as well. So I'll give you a simple example. We tell this to our beneficiaries as well, that fine, you have limited water, but you don't need a lot of water to actually clean and keep it and maintain it. For example, doing a simple thing, just wetting the pan slightly before you actually use it, will make you use only 1 to 1.5 liters of water to clean it, because your the waste is slippery and it just goes, it basically cleans the toilet. Whereas if you don't do it, then you have a harder time cleaning the pan. So these are simple things that they can do to sort of mitigate that. Similarly, they say ke nahi lekin pani kaise hai, and this and that. So it's also to do emphasize that the importance of sanitation. When they understand that, they will not come up with these, I'm not saying that they're excuses, but they will not come up with these, they'll find solutions. So
Exactly.
we tell them that you go and you walk distances to get water to have a bath. I know there's scarcity, but you still do that. Similarly, this is equally important. So if you can go and get water for other reasons, then you must also think about this. You
Right.
don't want to be callous and not try and understand where they're coming from, because their hardships is something else.
Yeah.
But these are things, small things that we can tell them to motivate them and give them little sort of ways of
Yeah.
helping with the water issue. Yeah.
Right. And I think Bhakti also mentioned that the water then goes into the soil and things like that. That there was something about that as well.
Which water?
The water that you use for the sanitation facilities, it kind of goes into the.
So that's the technology that we use for our toilets. So it's essentially like a cabin kind of superstructure that is constructed, and in that we have installed the Indian style pan, right? That is connected to two deep, around 3 to 4 feet pits that are constructed a few feet away from the toilet, and that's connected with a pipe. So when the waste and the pits are such with through brickwork, it's called a honeycombing. So there is space between pit that is created. So when the waste goes into those pits, all the water that gets separated and percolates into the ground, and the solid waste is left in the pit, and that takes a good 3 to 4 years to fill up.
Okay.
And because there are two pits, only one is active at one time. So then once that fills up, yeah, they start using the other pit. The waste goes into the other pit, and within 3 to 4 years, that one becomes manure, which they can use for anything.
Yeah. That's
That's the basic technology,
okay. So
which is suitable for a rural setting, right? When
yeah.
we think of toilets, urban folk, they think of plumbing and pipes and flush. None of that is there in villages. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that kind of difficulty is something I really can't imagine. But like you said, the main thing with this is it's not the structures, it's not the building of the toilets, it's the behavioral change, and that's kind of a change that it's generationally conditioned in them. So it's not going to come about with one campaign or like one
It's not.
thing. It's
It's not.
it's a continuous effort, and I think that's the greater battle than.
And I personally feel, Aashna, that um, when we spoke about the campaigns and behavioral change, and about what the government can do, I feel one key thing that should be introduced is having some sort of orientation about sanitation in schools. They do some sort of hygiene and sanitation, but really driving that point home, that is what's going to bring about the change. When like long-term sustainable change, it's when our children, our future generations, actually buy into this and think it's a basic fundamental right. That's when it's going to really change.
Yeah, exactly.
That needs to happen. Yeah.
Um, have you been able to garner enough community support for further outreach, and how can the public support your cause?
Wow. So I think uh, being part of the development space, um, we've noticed that if you take the corporates or civil society in general, non-profits, they definitely take their cue from what the government puts priority on. So for the last almost 6-7 years, it's been sanitation. So a lot of money, whether it's company, corporates, individuals, has poured into the space. So in that sense, we've had the community support. Um, so it's been good. But now increasingly, I feel with Swachh Bharat sort of tapering off and coming to an end, it's at least where finding resources to do more sanitation work is concerned, we are going to find it a little harder. Um, because you then the government's priority shifts to something else, and then similarly the funds and resources from companies also shift in that direction. So definitely we need to highlight um, and really mm, somehow in a very creative way put the message out there of how important it is to continue supporting this space,
Yeah,
especially the behavior change, right? Because what happens is that when the any beneficiary person buys into this cause, that it's important, I need it for my health, I need it for my family's health, even if I'm not supporting them financially to build the toilet, they'll find a way of doing it. So the key is to actually convince them that this is important, and then rest will follow. So more resources and more effort needs to go into
motive.
and investment needs to
Yeah,
go into changing their mindsets about this, and all the superstitions that sort of surround this. Toilet घर में नहीं होना चाहिए, अशुभ होता है,
yeah,
things like that. They need to change.
yeah. That's very true. I think when the Swachh Bharat movement was at its peak, that's when a lot of rural women were also realizing that they needed a toilet, and then there was like a story in the news about how they were not getting married unless the husband's house had a toilet inside it.
That's a very powerful narrative, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I know we're probably running out of time, and I'm not sure, but I just want to quickly give you this small anecdote, which will sort of tell you how important women think it is for a toilet. So I went into this village where we had like freshly constructed toilets. It was an Adivasi tribal village, and the woman says that. Really thank you for constructing the toilet. I said, nay, it's good, it's something that we wanted to do. That's what we work for. So she's like, no, her name was Gulab. She said, no, I have 3 little children, and you don't understand how hard it is for me, especially when I go into, when it's raining really hard and I have to go into the fields. It's so hard because firstly, it's really mucky, and then I don't know whether I should hold my sari or I should hold my umbrella. So it's really hard for me, and now I have a toilet in my house, so or close to my house. So I even forget me going. I am like completely stress free. Even in the night, my children who are young can go to the toilet, and I don't need to go with them. So these are some, I mean, we talk about numbers and stuff, but these are real people, and these are, this is the real impact that just a simple toilet can have on a family.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that is very powerful. And I don't think, especially privileged people like us, we live in the city, we have a house and everything. I just don't think we realize how blessed we are to even have a proper sanitation system where we have a toilet and everything, where because there's such a large amount of people that don't have that. And I just don't think we stop and remember that there's so many people that don't have this most basic function.
Running water in taps, I think less than 10% of India probably has that 24/7.
Yeah.
So it's just really something, it's like a blessing to have that.
It's really a blessing. I mean, whenever I feel like I need to be grateful, this is the one thing I need to like tell myself. I'm so grateful
Yeah.
for basic things. But thank you so much for answering all our questions. I wanted to ask you how, if people wanted to help out with the cause or donate, how can they reach you?
So our website, empowHerindia.org. So we have a payment gateway there. So that would be the ideal way to sort of support us and donate. So just to give you a broad ballpark figure, it's about 15,000 rupees to construct a toilet for a family. So yeah, I mean, I would be very pleased if there were people out there who are, would like to sort of support our cause and yeah, make a family very happy.
Please, I will. I'll put that in the description also. Please donate if you are hearing this podcast and if you like what was said. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure speaking to you, Aashna.
It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks again.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.